Hello and welcome to the Managing Madrid Podcast. It is Saturday, just moments after Real Madrid beat Almeria 3-1. And by moments, I literally mean moments. We haven't really had much time to go over stuff, look at stats, look at film. We haven't even got Carlo Ancelotti's press conference quotes yet. So we'll deal with that as they come. But great news, just as Matt Wiltsey and I hoped for before the game started, a Real Madrid W and an Arribas goal for the agenda. This works out nicely as Real Madrid continue winning back-to-back 2 Ws to start the season for a team that has had major concerns in the goal-scoring department. Jude Bellingham stepping up, third goal of the season. We've scored 5 goals in the opening 2 games, outperforming our XG. Let's see how long that's sustained. But for now, party time. Euan McTear is here to help me, Kiyan, Sobhani, break this game down. Euan, how are you?
Yeah, very good. How are you?
Not bad. Decent kickoff time on a Saturday. Can't complain.
7:30 local time here. It's not too late. We'll be finished with time to go and enjoy the Madrid nightlife. I could get used to this, but I'm
You
sure
got big
this
plans?
won't be. I don't know. It's it's so warm. You just want to get outside and go somewhere. Nice cold beer always helps.
All right. Well, here's to hoping you get to enjoy some tapas after this podcast is over. Euan, a big win for Real Madrid against a new look Almeria side with a new coach this season. They actually had a decent summer. Jose and I outlined their busy transfer window in the summertime. Do you feel like this kind of went as you were expecting?
I mean, so I watched the Almeria game last week against Rayo, and it was very much a team in not even transition, just like a transition of the summer, just a team that isn't ready yet. New coach, they've signed. I mean, their transfer window might be, Real Madrid, I think, have had the best of La Liga, but Almeria's transfer window is really quite impressive. Some of the guys they've been able to bring in, they've got a bit of money that they could spend, so they're going to have a really good squad on September 1st. The problem is they're very much putting that squad together. Not everyone's arrived yet. There's even been players arrived in between match day 1, match day 2. Some of the ones who just came the last few days weren't quite ready to start this game. They're just getting settled into this squad. So didn't really know what to expect from Almeria. And kind of going into this one, I was thinking this might be a really good time for Real Madrid to play Almeria, because if you're Barca or Atletico, I don't know when they have to play Almeria, but imagine you play them in match day 14, match day, 17, something like that. They'll be up and running, and I think they'll be a really solid team. But this is very much an Almeria that's still in construction, and you could see that this team had a lot of positives. The goal they scored, the counter-attacking goal, Arribas' goal, was just like a lot of quality, really well worked. But also, we saw from Real Madrid could exploit a lot of Almeria's weaknesses, because this is a team that is still not quite ready yet. So Real Madrid had to get 3 points from this one. There's no excuse to go down to Almeria and not come back against this team that's not quite ready yet. And after that early scare, they absolutely did it. 3-1, disallowed goal as well. Very convincing overall after the early scare, you can call it, blip, false start.
So regarding that false start, you know this probably better than me because you know these numbers and historical things a little bit better than I do, but you couldn't really script it any differently if you were going to just come up with storylines before the game about Arribas scoring early. It feels like any time, and I know Arribas is not actually technically on loan, he's sold and we have rights to him, but what's the actual number? Do you know off the top of your head, or could you at least come up with a guess or whatever?
Of the X's who score?
Ex-players who score, or players who are on loan who score. I just feels like every time.
Of them?
100, possibly 200%.
Maybe not the goalkeepers, maybe. No, actually, in my free answers, free questions piece, I wrote about this. This was inevitable. We knew this was going to happen, and wasn't able to find any numbers. Don't know how you go about that actually, but just a few of the names over the years. You had, Morientes, you had Robin, Huntelaar, Morata. Even in the last few years, Joselu is another one who has scored against Real Madrid. Raul de Tomas, William Jose, just so many of the players who Real Madrid let go. They're going to score.
Didn't Fran Garcia score against us?
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
I think he did, yeah.
it's another one.
It's inevitable, especially for a striker or an attacking player like Arribas is, and didn't quite expect it to be in 2.5 minutes. But when you saw, I don't know about you, but when you saw the cross coming in, and you could sort of see some guy in red arriving at just the right time. Couldn't see at first who that was. I was like, oh wait, that's Arribas. More for the narrative than any positioning or anything. So that was inevitable.
Well, luckily for us, he was pretty quiet throughout the game, apart from the goal. He only had 14 touches, but a very, very clinical touch to score that goal with the header. It's early enough that we can just start there, I think. I mean, when you look at that, and I'm curious to know like where your blame is on that goal, because I think there were a lot of different opinions and takes on that one. It starts from a Kroos set piece. Kroos is taking the set piece, and ultimately he is the one sprinting, or at least trying to sprint, or in charge of sprinting to track Arribas there. And I was thinking like, okay, when I saw Arribas score, I thought, okay, Kroos is the one marking him, but I need to be fair in my analysis before I say anything. I need to go back and watch, because Kroos was also the one taking the free kick, so should it even be him tracking? And I actually didn't go back to far enough to watch to see what the other players were doing. But ultimately, Kroos is there with Arribas. He's fully aware, and whether it should have been someone else helping him in that tracking is a different story. But ultimately, Kroos knows Arribas is there, and he's with him that whole time, and kind of doesn't react well enough for me. And also, it's a great run from Arribas. I don't know if it was Rudiger or Alaba. I think it was Rudiger who was marking the other player. And I want to say it was the number 10, Mbarba, who was making that run to the near post, dragging Rudiger on that side. So ultimately, it was on Kroos. And so I think it was a combination of that. And we're holding a high line through the majority of the game. Kroos is responsible for tracking. It's not a strong suit. Lunin also doesn't do well on that sequence either. Is that fair?
No, I think so. So I think Real Madrid's transition defense in this game was pretty poor overall. But I do think, like you're pointing out, we have to be a bit fairer with the transition defense straight after a set piece. I saw a few people criticise Fran Garcia as well for the goal, because he was way over on the right when he's the left back. But you have to remember, it was a set piece where Fran Garcia starts not in his usual position, because you have Kroos and Alba there on the left, so he moves over to the centre, to the right. It's, any transition that Almeria had, they looked dangerous. But especially from a set-piece situation, you have to be a bit more careful, as I think we're being, and being fair to Kroos and Fran Garcia, about who you're blaming, who should be picking up who, because, it's a set-piece. The set-piece doesn't go well. You're all of a sudden under attack. You can't expect Kroos to be doing holding midfielder duties there. He's the one who took the free kick way down on the left. So I wrote about this as well last week, because I was more worried about this from Alaba taking corners and free kicks. And okay, if you have Alaba taking all of these corners, his delivery is great. He's the best set piece taker on the pitch when that set of players is there. This was with Kroos not playing, remember, last week. But you then are missing a centre back in case there's a transition. It's similar with this here, with that free kick up on quite far near the byline on the left hand side. So I do think with Camavinga, it would be different. Just he would have got back there just because he has free lungs. But the transition defense from normal situations, I think, was more concerning than that specific set piece one where everything's a bit out of shape to begin with.
Yeah, I think what you can do, though, is you can maybe zoom out and talk about Real Madrid's defense as a whole and not just on that sequence. And by the way, I want to apologize to Arribas. He actually had 30 touches and 3 key passes. My Who Scored app wasn't refreshed when I said 14 touches. I think like you look at some of the defensive things in this game. And again, I think because we were holding a high line, our transition defense was under scrutiny a bit more, and I think that's where maybe Camavinga would have helped a little bit more than Kroos, but Kroos was amazing on the ball today. We can get to that in a sec. Lunin looked a little bit shaky. I thought at least some of his saves were good, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts on Lunin's performance was.
I mean, I think Courtois saves the Almeria goal, and most goalkeepers, it's straight at Lunin, it's kind of low. It's hard to get to. Courtois, I think, saves that one. And then there was the one that I think will really hurt him was the save he made, and then he just sort of stood there and let it go out for a corner. When if he'd been just a little bit more attentive, he'd have easily, because the ball was going so slow. Yeah. I think that will hurt him more than, for me, a lot of the saves. Oh, he made this save, he made that save. Most goalkeepers are, Courtois is catching that, is hauling that in. Oblak is hauling that in. Some of the Ter Stegen is hauling that in. It's, there's one thing to make a save, but if you parry it away and give a second chance, this is it goes down as a save. But I don't know. It's not an ideal situation. I think we know by now from what we've seen of Lunin, especially we got to see a bit more of him last season. He's not Real Madrid starting level. He's thrown into this because of really unfortunate injury to Courtois, and Real Madrid went and signed Kepa because Kepa's going to be the starter. I think it was fair for Ancelotti to give Lunin this game as well. Kepa's just arrived; he's not settled in yet properly. Lunin, did a good job last week. I think it was fair to give Lunin the shot this one too, but I would be very surprised if it's not Kepa in goal on Friday in Vigo.
This might be Lunin's last game for a long time, actually.
I think he will get games though. I think there will be more rotation than there was with Courtois. I think
for sure.
Even some Champions League group games, even towards the end when Real Madrid have qualified, others to play for his first place, you'd often still see Courtois playing. I think we will see a bit more rotation to give Lunin his minutes. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's could be a while before he's back in. I think it's Kepa's job to lose or to try and keep hold of for the foreseeable.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Kepa is not Courtois to be that irreplaceable as dispensable or indispensable. That's the word I was looking for, as Courtois is. But I think it was pretty telling the way Ancelotti spoke about this situation before the game. You saw it, right? Where he was pretty frank in his words that one of these goalkeepers is just going to play more. It's not like going to be an equal rotation, and we all know it's going to be Kepa. I thought Lunin also just looked. There were moments where he actually had a really good save on a corner, but if you look back at that corner, he looks extremely indecisive and a little bit positionally lost on where he's supposed to be. Should he come out to claim? He left his far post, and then he ran back to the post, and then he was exposed a little bit. There were just moments like that where I thought maybe the confidence level wasn't there, and you can justify that to some extent. I mean, he's been through a lot of the past year, obviously, with what's going on in Ukraine, and also, he's not been playing regularly to have rhythm and that much confidence. But alas, Real Madrid is ruthless. And it's unforgiving if they need to make sure they win games and maximize their output in each game. And I think Kepa's gonna come in here. Other defensive issues, I thought the marking was poor on certain occasions. I mean, I'm looking at the XG now too. Almeria last season scored goals, and they were a above average goal scoring team. It was their defense that really hurt them. And today, they actually generated 1.81 XG. And Edgar Gonzalez, most notably, had a big miss on a set piece just to start the second half. But what were there other things specifically that you saw that Real Madrid were struggling with defensively?
I mean, pretty much every Almeria opportunity was a transition. It was counter-attacking. There weren't too many times where Almeria had a sustained spell of possession and worked their way through. That didn't really happen. Real Madrid were able to get the ball back in those situations before it kind of came into the final third. So really, for me, it was the transition defense that really stood out.
Yeah. I just wanted to start here because I think it's notable that Real Madrid have had two back-to-back performances from Carvajal that have been very good. And I wonder, what's your theory on that? Is it just maybe he's refreshed with the captain's armband? What is it?
My theory is there's no midweek games yet. When the midweek games come, he can't play 180 minutes in 4 days. He can't do that. The start of the season, it's like this every year. He often starts the season well, and part of the reason is exactly this. It's you're playing on the weekend. There's a free midweek. You're playing again. Even this year, they don't have the Super Cup, which they would have had round about this time. This time last year against Frankfurt. Right now, it's just play on the weekend and until the Champions League starts. I think there's a midweek La Liga round in September as well. Until then, it's just every 7 days. And Carvajal can do that. We've seen that. We saw that even there was a stretch in the spring last season when I think when the last 16 games are being played and the way they split those, Real Madrid had, a couple midweeks off and Carvajal was really good. And, he can do that. It's the back-to-back-to-back games that Carvajal just, I don't think can do at this stage. So great for him. He really has been good. Maybe I don't know if it is the captain's arm. He's worn the captain armband enough. I don't think it's like a necessarily super special thing for him. He's done that before. I think it's the fact that he had 7 days since the last game in Bilbao.
You're right. It's kind of a bummer answer, but you're right. I think if you got this version of Carvajal regularly, it's a bit of a game changer for me because we know this is one of those spots in the starting lineup that has been problematic. And I think obviously if you get him, especially with this diamond role, it's much needed to get maximum output from your fullbacks.
Yeah.
The other thing is that with regards to your point, I think Ancelotti should rotate Carvajal more for that reason. Because last year, I think there were definitely moments where you could argue Carvajal needs to sit and just for rest purposes to get the best of him in those big games, right? So,
yeah. I mean, a Champions League group stage game at home to your top 4 team. Give Lucas Vazquez a go. Lucas Vazquez is absolutely fine. He's not, of course, the player you want for the big games. We need Carvajal at that level to have any chance against Man City or derbies, classicals, things like that. But yeah, Champions League group game against pot 4 team, pot 3 team at home. Put Lucas Vazquez in. You don't need Carvajal. Give him the rest and also try and make it semi-regular. Don't just be giving him, if you can keep him mostly playing and basically become a weekends player, that could pretty much be the difference between winning this league title and not. Like that position, like you just said, with this formation, if that's going to stick, that position is so important. It's kind of solved on the left because Fran Garcia has been good. When Mondi's back, I mean, you at least have 2 players there who are different kinds of players. One is young and pretty much always available. One isn't always available but brings something different. The right back, you've got 2 old guys. You need to really look after them because we've seen that. We pretty much saw this last season. The Carvajal burned out and that cost him.
Interesting that he played the full 90 today, which by the way, like it's no longer full 90. It's like full 100. Like you see, for example, Lucas Vazquez coming in the 89th minute, and my brain tells me, oh, he played a minute, but he actually played like 10 minutes. And I was like wondering, like, why do I have so many notes on Brahim Diaz if he came on in the 89th minute? It's like, oh, because he actually because the games are just infinite. Most of these stat
sites, it's still like Transfer Market, whatever, any of these ones adding up the minutes. It's you come on the 89th minute, they give you 1 minute for that, which is really unfair these days when you've actually played so much more.
It's true. It feels like there needs to be some overhaul in the system to keep track of this. Vazquez came on and played on the right wing, and Carlo kept Ancelotti on. This reminds me, because we're talking about rest in the right back and stuff. Odriozola was at home today because he had the flu or some virus.
Transfer virus.
What's going to happen with him? Do you think he's going to be, by the time the window closes, he'll be somewhere else?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
Any
Don't know where.
where?
I have no idea where, but it seems like this is one they're working on to find a landing spot. And who knows where that is, but should be somewhere. We also hope that's an option. I mean, they just got rid of Gorazabel, so they have a spot. But they
that one anyway, makes sense, but I'm surprised it's been a little bit quiet on that front. From one wing back to the next, curious to know what you thought of Fran Garcia. I saw a notable improvement from the first game. And I actually already really liked his first game. I know that he had his nervous moments and giveaways, but I liked what he brought to the table. And I kind of just assumed that those mistakes in the first game were down to him being nervous, making his debut for the team that he loves playing for. What was your assessment of him?
No, I totally agree. Even by the second half of the Athletic game, I already thought, he'd improved, and big improvement. But it's kind of like he just went back to his normal level, his Rayo level, the level he'd been shown in pre-season. It was just the start of that Athletic game was a bit of a dip, and I totally agree with you, Kiyan. I think it was just nerves, and it's understandable. We can all sit here and talk about this and that. None of us has ever played San Mamés making your Real Madrid debut, so or your return to Real Madrid. So totally normal. He's a young guy, and I thought he was really good in this game. And again, one of the players who did stay on towards the end and almost scored what would have been a pretty impressive goal right at the end there with that whip shot. That when it first went, I thought it was way off, and then when you saw the replay from the camera right behind the far post, you realised it was really close to going in. So no, I liked what he did, and I'll just mention it again. I've seen a lot of people criticise him for the Almeria goal and for him being out of position at left back and over on the right. That all comes from where he's been asked to position himself for the attacking set piece. So no, top marks to Fran Garcia, I would say.
Yeah, I also thought in the first half, especially, he made a lot of good runs, and he didn't get it, but just his little underloads and overloads. And he does this thing where he passes the ball and immediately sprints into the final third. And if Vinicius is in one channel, he'll go in the other one. He'll try to spread it out. It creates space for Vinicius. I'm a big fan of what he's doing. I also liked his defensive reads. I was stoked because I thought he scored at the end, but it just goes just wide, like you mentioned. This has been really encouraging from both the fullbacks. So again, for reasons we've already stated, we hope that it sustains itself. You also were one of the people who watched Fran Garcia regularly at Rayo. I mean, you knew how good he was, right?
Yeah, but then again, I really wasn't sure what to expect, because going from Rayo to Real Madrid is so different in every sense, in the stature of the club and the pressure. But also just in terms of Iraola versus Ancelotti is totally different. The pitch at Vallecas is the smallest in La Liga. The Bernabeu is as big as it can be. Obviously hasn't played there yet, but still. I really wasn't sure how this signing would go. I think it's a big step up for him. There's going to be a need to be patient with him. Maybe a more logical step up for him would have been somewhere like Sevilla, Real Sociedad, but he's gone all the way straight to Real Madrid. And we're only 2 games in, but I was, when the transfer happened, really curious to see how he'd cope, because it's a change in pretty much every aspect, the pressure, but also tactical, also just playing at Vallecas with Rayo, a team that isn't expected to win every week, going to Real Madrid where you are, totally different.
So Bellingham scores the equalizer in this game. Comes in a great moment. I mean, Vinicius at that point is struggling a little bit with his efficiency to get past his man and get some good shots off. Rodrigo was trying to dribble. Not much success in that front in this game. Up until that point, it was Real Madrid were still trying to break through. So just a note on Bellingham, and then we'll go into the breakdown of the goal. But as Sam Leverage wrote on Managing Madrid today after the game, first one, XG of 0.18. The second one, 0.33. He's outperforming his expected goals by 2.1. He has 3 goals this season. I don't know, like everything with these discussions early on this season, we have no idea how sustainable this stuff is. We did say before the season that we think he is going to score maybe 15 goals. So for that to come true, he has to cool off a little bit, but he looks great, Euan. I mean, even on that second goal, the first one was it just comes to him. He does good finish. But the second one, he attacks that Cruz ball, which was spectacular in its own right. But he attacks
the second goal was a centre forward's goal.
Yeah.
It was
like watching Van Nistelrooy or something.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like able to just get up there, body in the right position, be brave, get the head on the ball, the little flick, see where the goalkeeper is. That was a centre forward's goal. The first one was, kind of the ball falls to him, the finish is perfect. He puts it right there in that corner where no one can get to it, in that with a lot of bodies around him. But the second goal, especially, that I think showed to me that the 15 goal thing, he could smash that. Scored 14 last year for Dortmund, and he's just in a better team. He's going to score a lot of goals. A team without a centre forward as well. Yeah, it's even better than I think anyone predicted. I mean, you were big on him after seeing him live in pre-season a couple of times, and he's already just like doing it in the real competition already, better than anyone could hope for.
Well, this is now, it feels like a long time ago, which I guess it was 1 week. But I mean, even at that Athletic game, he had so many good defensive contributions. And today, it's like he had 6 shots today. And so he's like actually getting involved like a striker too.
Mm-hmm.
He also had an assist. I didn't realize that Vinicius' goal was his assist. Is it one of those like Busquets type assist to Messi, or was it like a legitimate? I can't remember.
Yeah, that one's maybe just a bit lucky on his part, but it will count. So
yeah, Bellingham was awesome today. 3 key passes, 6 shots, 2 goals, 1 assist. We'll count it. So what I wanted to say about that goal was that Fede Valverde, I think, deserves a lot of credit on it. It's nice to see Fede in this role and in him kind of getting his tenacity and his bounce back. I like him driving through the middle, and in that sequence, and it's interesting because Carvajal pretty much had the right wing to himself in this game, bar a few moments here and there, but Fede and Rodrigo were playing centrally, and Fede driving down the middle created that goal. He's linking up play just outside the box, and then he drives it diagonally to Carvajal, gets it back, attacks it with the header, and then Bellingham scores the rebound. What did you think of Fede? Do you feel like he's back? I mean, did he ever really go away? Like his drop in form a little bit last season after the World Cup. What did you think of him, and what do you think of him overall?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did go away a little. Like it's undeniable that he had a poor second half of last season. But this new formation really seems to suit him. He's exactly that kind of guy that like needs space in front of him, needs somewhere to run into, and his eyes light up, and he just will charge forward and do what he's best at. And it seems that just the positioning of this diamond, when he receives the ball, he does tend to have that space in front of him. When he was playing right wing, he never really had that. He was, made a lot of good contributions from there, but would usually receive the ball already in the final third. And when he was playing in the midfield free, maybe he's a little bit further wide. He's, in a different part of the pitch. He's got other responsibilities, but right there, pretty much every time he gets the ball, there's just space, just so much space. And you can see his eyes light up basically, and he is already, looking like his old self a little bit.
Yeah. The other talking point that I think is pretty big from not only this game, but just Real Madrid's first few games, including preseason, if you want to count that, but certainly from the first 2 games, is a discussion about how the diamond gets the best out of Bellingham, but maybe doesn't out of Vinicius. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on that discussion and also Vinicius today.
Yeah, I mean, I think we already saw this in pre-season, didn't we? That and then in Bilbao and in this one, that it's going to take some time for Vinicius to work out what his new role is. And I think it's 2 things. It is the diamond, it is Bellingham being there, but it is also the loss of Benzema. I mean, the way Vinicius and Benzema linked up, they had this sort of understanding so well. Benzema not being there it is going to take some time, I think, for him to settle and properly understand his place. This game there by far wasn't one of Vinicius' best games. Kind of got a bit lost in the first half, improved in the second, but I think that's the level of Vinicius that he'll be happy with, is that he can have a poor game and still score a goal. Helped with a deflection and whatever, but he's up and running, he's on the score sheet, he's got his first goal of the season, in a game where he wasn't at his best. And I think that's the kind of thing that you see from the top players, where they can still, get a stat here or there, get a goal, kill off a game without being at their best. So if he can still get a few goals, a few assists as he comes to terms with and works out exactly where and how he fits into this new formation, then by the time he works it out, which he will, he'll already be on a few goals, a few assists, and I think then he'll, boast similar numbers to the last 2 years.
I love that he was able to score despite the struggles, quote unquote struggles. I also the reason I say quote unquote struggles is because I think sometimes I feel like we discuss the wrong things when we talk about his struggles in the diamond, in part because I feel like he's still getting the ball on the left wing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like him, when he gets the ball on the left wing, which he's gotten plenty of times in these past 2 games, it hasn't been just playing as a striker down the middle or whatever, that I think some people kind of make it out to be that way, which it's clearly not the case. He's getting the ball on the left wing and he's trying to take players on from the left wing, just like he did last season. And so far, he hasn't been that efficient in that one regard. Of course, he has his moments. He always does. He's a volume dribbler, so he'll pull off a few here and there. But I do think some of that stuff actually has nothing to do with the diamond. He's getting the ball on the left anyway. But also, like last season, remember how much I complained anyway that take him out of the left side, make him more unpredictable, go down the middle. And I think he's doing that. So I just think we should be patient with this aspect of it. And I think he'll be fine. It's just and it has less to do with a diamond thing and more of him just finding his groove, and he'll be fine.
It's the Benzema thing too. Exactly what you're saying there is he's getting the ball on the left, similar positions to where he was last season. But last season, Benzema's attracting 2 or 3 defenders as well, and that's just not. It's not quite the same with Rodrigo. So it's a bit like we were talking about Fran Garcia having so much change from last year to this with a transfer. It's so much change for Vinicius positionally, and his his biggest teammate accomplice from the start of his career. Benzema was there from day one and all the way through, and they had their ups and downs, but by the end of last season, Benzema and Vinicius were just on this unique genius wavelength where they just understood what was going on, and now he's got to adapt to a new system at the same time as losing his other half. So no, it will take some time.
So I don't know if you saw this, because again we just we recorded pretty much after the game. Carlo Ancelotti's post-game quotes, which actually I'm not clear, because I know Sam covered them for the site, if he did the pitch side thing or was it just press conference, because we that sure. Real Madrid have been kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, on strike or protesting the whole camera in the locker room thing. So I don't know if he was actually pitch side. I don't know. I guess I'll find that out at some point. But so I don't know if these are probably all press conference quotes, but he actually spoke about this whole camera thing. And this is on cue, because you and I agree a little bit too much on the podcast. And I don't know if we agree on this subject or not, but the camera's in the locker room. What is your take on it? Carlos said today, and this was the headline quote on Managing Madrid, quote, "I would prefer to take a pay cut than let cameras in the locker room," basically stating that it's not mandatory, but even if it was mandatory, we still wouldn't let them in, and I'll just take the pay cut. What's going on? Do you feel like other teams will follow suit, or La Liga will win this little battle, if it's even a battle? What do you think?
I mean, that quote is perfectly fine. That's kind of the issue is La Liga's doing this to make more money. I put a tweet yesterday which was basically, if this was any other sports league, people would be like, "Oh, the NBA, Formula One, the Premier League, they're so smart, they're so innovative." And then it's like, because everyone likes to bash La Liga, it's like, "Oh, what are La Liga doing?" Making up all these reasons of why they don't like it, when basically I think that people don't like it because it's La Liga that's proposed it. Basically, I'm fine with Real Madrid's stance, which is we don't want this and we'll take less money because of this. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. but we're at a point where players and coaches want more and more wages, and they want to do less and less for it. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, in Spain, you'd have a player press conference every single day. Players now in a season, they almost don't speak. Do you remember when I think it was last season, 2 seasons ago, Dembele gave an interview, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, that's Dembele's voice!" Like, he'd been at Barcelona 4 years, and no one had ever heard him speak. The players are far too protected, I think, right now. There's no access, there's no engagement with the fan other than what they or the club put out on social media, which is exactly what they want to put out. And I think it's a good thing to have a bit more access that you don't normally see, the fly on the wall kind of stuff. So if the players want to keep having more and more wages, and well, you have to do some of these things to earn it. And if Ancelotti says, well, I would be happy to take less money and not have it, then that's fine. And it's basically, I think, up to every club and every squad to speak with their club and work out how much they want to participate, because that's exactly the way La Liga's outlined it, which is that there's a pool of money available, and the clubs that collaborate the most get more of that money, which then obviously trickles down to player wages, and the clubs that collaborate the least, well, they'll get less money from it. So
it's 13 million for the year, right? Or something like that?
I think the pool is 130 million, and then it depends on basically how much you collaborate or not. So across the 20 clubs. So, for Real Madrid, this is a small change, and they can say no. For Barcelona, with the situation they're in financially, they kind of have to say yes, and they've participated. Real Madrid haven't. It's up to each club, but I think it's a great thing. The tactical, the cooling breaks, the tactical conversations you can listen into is fascinating. The dressing room, it's 30 seconds, a little bit of. I mean, they've already been doing this for years in Segunda. Girona are one of the teams to participate. For years, La Liga TV has gone in when they were in Segunda and filmed them doing. Everyone gets together and they huddle up and they all go Girona, 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 and then they all go out. They've been going in and showing you that live for years. Now they do that in the Primera as well. I think a lot of the people who came out with but the dressing room is sacred. We can't have cameras in the dressing room, and then they'll go and turn on All or Nothing or Sunderland Till I Die or any of these documentaries that they love, or Drive to Survive because it's Formula One and it's amazing. And I don't know. I think it's a good thing. I think for fans, it's a great thing, and if clubs and players don't want to participate, okay, they can. It's in their right to choose to not participate and take less money.
You make compelling points. Well, you make great points.
Because you mentioned the NBA thing, because you've been in NBA locker rooms, and that's like an interesting one, because US sports is really different, where you've gone in and done post-match interviews with the players, and maybe cameras in the dressing room is something else, but in US sports the players speak like every day. You're never going to have a thing which happened with Dembele where no one knows how LeBron James sounds. Like he gives he speaks to the media like multiple times a week.
Well, it also, the NBA is constant drama from start to finish, so there's like so many sound bites and so many things happening, and that, to be honest, kind of just accentuates the product and it becomes this huge thing, right? It contributes. It's a huge market. I'm a little bit torn on this because, like, as you mentioned, like I mentioned this to you on Twitter, that I used to be an NBA journalist. So I used to go into the Raptors locker room after the games, and it's so different from football because it's free reign. Like, listen, like Real Madrid is crazy. You and I know this, and everyone covering this team knows this, that it's a very, very tight ship, and they restrict. We don't even have mixed zone at the Bernabeu. It's gone, right? Mixed zone is gone. The only time there's a mixed zone is if like Atleti come to town, for example, and they want to have a mixed zone for their own team in the Bernabeu. But the Real Madrid players don't come out. That's why preseason is part of the reason I really like it, because there's more access. There's a mixed zone. There's players who come out. It's easier. But for perspective, the NBA, you go in the locker room if you have a pass, and literally the players are changing. Like, they're half naked. They're like the showers are right there, and you can go in with a microphone and just talk to any player you want as if it's some kind of social cocktail hour. There's like there's crazy. And
but you guys have respect, I think, between the players and the journalists there. There's always going to be some journalists maybe a player doesn't like, but there is a respect there, which I think And it's us football journalists' own fault that I think over the years that respect got destroyed by, I'm not going to name names specifically, but some of the Spanish media that would go too far and be too over the top and just lose the players' trust.
I could see that happening. I can also tell you one time that one reporter actually took a picture of one of the basketball players while he was like half naked, and he made a big scene in the locker room. He's like, "Hey, why are you taking pictures and stuff?" Like, so there's definitely times where those lines get crossed. But so I guess my point is, like, for selfish purposes, I mean, it's great to have more access, right? I mean, not just for media, but for fans, because what's one of the most iconic videos out there from the three-peat era is that video of Zidane giving the halftime talk against Juve, right? Where he's giving tactical instructions and everyone's like, this is amazing. And it's a timeless video that we all enjoy. I personally enjoyed Diego Simeone's, he had a few instructions that he handed out, right? Like, that was cool to me. But I also understand the player's perspective. Like, hey, like, this is the one place where we can like say things without having to. It's kind of like the boys' WhatsApp group chat. It's a sacred space, right? It's a sacred space that we never want.
You don't want that suddenly on La Liga TV.
No, you absolutely don't, right? Yeah. So I understand it too.
Yeah. No, I think they'll. It's only just started, and little by little, there'll be more of an understanding of what's shown, what's not. I think in the end, the dressing room stuff is really going to be, from what we've seen so far, it's really quite tame. It's kind of just there was one at Getafe Barcelona last week. It was kind of just the Barcelona players walking back in after warm-ups and going to their spots, and then the camera, once they actually start getting changed, the camera goes away. And I think if it's respectful like that, there's no problem with it. I think if clubs really want to shut it down, that's fine. I think from Real Madrid's point of view, there's three reasons why they don't really want the camera in the dressing room thing. One is that they're in a war with La Liga, so anything La Liga does, they're against. Key point. Two is that Real Madrid is big enough that they can sell that content themselves. For example, you'll see, I'm sure the argument's almost been made. It sounds like by Ancelotti, the dressing room is sacred. The dressing room is sacred. Well, Real Madrid literally put out the three-peat documentary from the dressing room with a halftime team talk when most of the players aren't thinking if there's a camera there. They're thinking about how to beat. Was it Juve, that one, the Zidane speech, or was it the third final?
Yeah, I think it was Juve. I think it was.
And the players aren't thinking about that, but Real Madrid make that content and they put that out there in their documentary, and at the end of the day, they do that to make money from that. So they want to control their own content because they can monetize it more than Almeria could or monetize the same thing. And then the third thing I think from Real Madrid is, I think it still kind of goes back to one of the most kind of embarrassing moments for Real Madrid in the last 10 years was the Benzema Mondi, Vinicius is playing against us thing that was picked up in the Champions League game. That was in the tunnel. You know how they have the camera there at the exit of the tunnel. I think it was a German team, wasn't it? Mönchengladbach maybe. And Benzema says to Mondi in French, we maybe need to stop passing to Vinicius as much. He's playing against us. That remains one of the more kind of embarrassing moments for the Real Madrid squad in the last 10 years. And if you can avoid these kind of things, then these clubs and these players are going to want to avoid any embarrassing things. We saw the same for Barcelona when they made that documentary, and they had Jordi Alba crying at halftime at Anfield. It's understandable that the players don't want these things to come out, but I think if there's a trust between whoever's with the camera, at the end of the day, I don't think anything particularly controversial is going to come out. I think it's fine.
If they know they're mic'd up, they usually will be obviously careful with.
Which in like American sports, they're mic'd up, so often, every week, one player's mic'd up, and they act a little bit differently, don't you? Like when
I sometimes feel like they put on a show, like, I'm going to be this is going to go this is going to go viral. Like, let me say,
and that's absolutely really fine. The show's great. They put on a great show. It's great content, and everyone's kind of happy. And the fans get to know that specific NFL or NBA player a bit more. But I think we're at a point where fans hardly know the players apart from what the players themselves put on their Instagram because there's just no access. So. If you want to keep making more money, then these are the kind of things that literally are making more money. And if if like Ancelotti, you'd rather not and take a pay cut, that's fine for you to do as well.
They have the option, right? And at this point, like, and you correctly brought up the fact that this is a situation where, from a financial perspective, Real Madrid can easily recoup that and much more by just putting out their own, documentary content.
And they still have Real Madrid TV. But remember, part of the reason Barcelona too is they just got rid of Barca TV, so they don't actually have. Okay, they have social media, their YouTube channel, but they don't have that space to kind of do this themselves anymore, and no other club really has anything similar to Real Madrid TV. So Real Madrid don't need to do it. I would love if they did, as a fan, as a journalist, but they don't have to, and no other team in the Liga has to either. If they want to say no, they can say no, and next time they negotiate a new contract and there's less money, well, that's maybe why. And
obviously the key point that Real Madrid are in a bit of war with La Liga too. So
that's
any situation where they can just oppose, they will, if it's not going to be hugely consequential. Okay, I'm just kind of scanning to see what other Ancelotti post-game quotes. There was a moment in Almeria's goal where Ancelotti was upset with Vinicius. Did you see this?
I could sort of. He was really animated in this game. At halftime as well, he kind of stormed on the pitch a little bit, but I didn't really understand what that was about. But I did see him, right up there.
So per Sam Leverage on Managing Madrid, he says when pushed on his fury with Vinicius losing possession leading up to Almeria's goal, Ancelotti made his stance clear. He said, quote, "I don't want to take away his genius, the risks that he takes. I got angry a bit because it was a risk, but I get more excitement out of the chances he takes than I get angry." So,
fair enough.
Yeah, interesting. This was another one about kickoff times, the heat. Is this, by the way, a case for, like, this is surprising to you that the games are a little bit earlier because of the heat? Because he was asked about the heat.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of problematic because everywhere is hot pretty much just now. So it's hard to, spread the games out a little bit. They're already doing that by putting 2 games on Friday, 2 on Monday. I was maybe a little bit surprised that this wasn't 9:30 in Almeria, and the Osasuna one could have been earlier because Pamplona's a bit cooler. But Osasuna Athletic is a huge game, and they want to put that in prime time. Okay, maybe internationally people will be like Osasuna Athletic, but in Spain that's a huge one. That's a big rivalry. So I guess they wanted to put that prime time, and that means Almeria, Real Madrid at 7:30. I mean, the heat is insane, but also there's been some games. I think one last week they moved by half an hour. I don't think that's really going to help all that much. So it's just warm everywhere in Spain,
Between the cooling breaks and the infinite amount of extra time, I have to schedule like an extra hour for all these games. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the scheduling is interesting too because you give 2 hours between games, and every game now is running on to the other. I don't know about you watch them on ESPN, I guess, but I don't know, like on some of the broadcasters, it's kind of doing the split screen and showing you the start of the next game as the one game finishes because they're running onto each other. They're running on. So the end of this game, we went to split screen to start to show Osasuna Athletic because a game's not 2 hours anymore. It's more than that with all these minutes of stoppage time. So
yeah. And then about the diamond, Ancelotti says, in the end, we played with this system. We can play in 2 lines of 4 and we're comfortable. It doesn't let you control the wings very well, but it gives you many offensive options.
I think that's exactly what we've seen, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And more onus on Fran and Carvajal. Okay. I did want to just make a quick point about Brahim Diaz.
Yeah.
He got minutes today. I liked his tenacity. I liked his drive to go forward. They had that chance in the 93rd minute, which he should have shot it himself instead of squaring it to Joselu. But well-intentioned overall. It was a great run. The point I guess I wanted to make about him is that, again, he came on the 89th minute, but still played 10 minutes. Against Athletic, we brought on Joselu at the end of that game. but I felt he was a little bit too. I didn't suit his game necessarily that we sat deep, and he was expected to kind of bring the ball forward. In this case, I liked it better because we brought Brahim along with Joselu, and Brahim could kind of play behind Joselu. And we didn't see too much of it, but there were just a couple moments where I thought, okay, well, this makes a little bit more sense than that the first time we did it. Of course, Modric came in. This is the second game running where Vinicius gets subbed off. Rodrigo as well. We didn't see that too much last season.
Yeah, I had to look at this actually because the Vinicius sub did kind of catch my eye that there was a point last season when he just played the 90 minutes every single time. And I think a lot of people were calling for Vinicius to get more of a break. But I went and looked back at it, and actually Ancelotti did pretty much the same thing last year. He subbed Vinicius off around that same kind of minute, 80-something minute in the first two La Liga games of last season, and then didn't sub him off again until like springtime. So
really,
I guess it's maybe in the first two last season, which was Almeria away, which I went to for match day 1 last year, and the second game was Vigo away, and he subbed him off about that same time, and then he didn't. So I'm guessing it's maybe more of a pre-season fitness thing, easing him into speed. But once Ancelotti feels Vinicius is 100%, I'm not sure we're actually going to see very much of taking Vinicius off in the last few minutes.
Anything in your 3 answers, 3 questions piece that we didn't touch on? I haven't read it yet.
I think pretty much. I had one little point on Nacho. Just it's weird to me that the captain of Real Madrid hasn't played yet, and we're in match day 3. It's normal because Nacho is the 4th choice centre back, now the 3rd choice. But it's never really been the case where the captain of Real Madrid is not a starter, or at least semi-regular. So it's going to be an interesting one with the captain of Real Madrid on the bench for most of the season, but.
I just opened your article now. You also asked, would Real Madrid miss Camavinga, which just reminded me that.
This was one of the pre-match points. Yeah, I was surprised he came on, to be honest. But in terms of did they miss him at the start in transition defense, probably a bit. He would have, he would be there. He's so fast. But in attack, basically, my point was that if the replacement was Kroos, then no, they didn't miss him because Kroos had that amazing cross and assist for Bellingham's goal and scored that goal just before half time that was disallowed. So Kroos did, his part in attack, but in defence, of course, he's not going to give you what Camavinga does.
Yeah, when I saw the wrap on Camavinga's leg, I just got a little bit uncomfortable. I was like,
The fact they were putting him on at all? Or?
Well, yeah, just if there's like a 1% chance anything happens to him, I'd be.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was the kind of game or moment really where you had to do that. But
yeah, well, thankfully he's okay.
Yeah.
Anything else from this game that we didn't talk about?
Don't think so. Just in general, couldn't have been a better start given all the bad injury luck. Apart from that, it's 2 wins from 2. Bellingham looks worth every penny, or looks a bargain, and. Vigo on a Friday night game next. Celta Vigo away.
It's a Friday night?
Yeah.
Oh man, I just assumed it was the weekend. Okay, we got to plan accordingly.
Friday night in Vigo. Celta's centenary weekend. They turn 100 next weekend, so they're going to be up for it. Don't know if that matters when you've got Rafa Benitez and the way they're playing just now, but
it'd be interesting. So I just wanted to tell our listeners something that, I'm amazed a little bit because when I go to managingmadrid.com right after the game, I just assume that it'll take time for all the staff to write their pieces, but pretty much I'm the final whistle. I don't know how you guys do it. Euan had his post-game piece published before Sam Sharp's immediate reaction. And then Sam Leverage had his 3 stats piece published. Matt Wiltsey has his player ratings published. Sam has the Ancelotti post-game quotes published, and I'm getting tongue-tied now, but just a message to everybody listening, go to the website after the game, get your fix, and then by the time,
it's about an hour since full time, isn't it, right now? So an hour after the game, and what's that, 5 pieces up?
Yeah. And
the podcast will go up in a few minutes, and that's almost quicker than Marca's Real Madrid guys a little bit.
I don't know about that. I think Marca's on another level. I mean, they have an army of people working for them, but we try our best, I guess. You guys do terrific work. So by the time you're waiting for the post-game podcast to be uploaded, you can go and get your fix, and that'll tide you over. I also have an article about Kepa. That's pinned on the website. Mm-hmm. And also, since our last free podcast, which was on Monday, Lucas and I recorded, we've done, I think, 5 podcasts, and all of them are on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. So we did a weekly live Zoom call. We did the mailbag. Matt and Ruben did their big picture podcast. We did a preview podcast. That's 4. And the 5th one actually was for free. It was Castilla Corner. But same thing. Every week we invite you to be a part of it over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. Euan, thank you for your time. It was fun. Great chatting with you. Sure again, after some time. I think we haven't really talked.
It's my first one of the season. So last one, I guess, who knows, end of last season sometime. So yeah.
First of many. Good chatting with you, Euan, as always. Take care.
You too.
Bye. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. And before we send you along on your way, we wanted to give a shout out to our patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for being a part of this Real Madrid family. As a reminder, if you're a patron, you get access to a ton of bonus content. And if you pledge $10 or more, not only do you get access to all the content, you also get guaranteed responses to your questions, and you get a specific shout out on the podcast. So shout out to these $10 plus patrons as follows: Brandon Alvarez, Willie Reed, Will Sousa, Wamik Jamal, Tobias Arroyo Botcher, Tahmid Kalam, Sushank Damala, Sujai Wani, Somanshu Singh, Sheikh Hatiri, Sergio Arribas, Santos Solorzano, Samuel Justin, Samar Z, Sai Mohan, Sasi Kumar, Rodrigo Balmaceda, Rishi D, Phoenix, Peter Powell, Paulo Fierro, Patrick Diafati, Oscar Barrera, Nico Laxo, Nicholas Moller, Nick Ribeiro, Nelson Masariego, Naveen Babu, Ramesh Babu, Mowgli, MJ Diego, Mikel, Michael Zinberg, Marin Myrtle, Matthew Atkins, Martin Ridman, Magnus Lext, Logan Stahl, Leon Savernakis, Kunal Tilakar, Crystal Glass, Kevin Rivera, Jose Osorio, Jose Cruz, John Fernandez, Jeff Soa, Jason Fitz, Jacob P., Ian Marley, Howard Moore, Graham Gerard, Gary Kohut, Frederick Rantakiro, Frederick Sundros, S.A. Davisito, Eloy Enriquez, Edward Sossman, Daniel Williams, Connor McMorrow, Christian Toff, Christian Acosta, Brendan Powers, Brandon Stevens, Arnab Mukherjee, Armand Gashi, Armando L., Anthony Tharp, Andres Silvestre, Ananya Kumar, Alex Steiberg, Azaz Hussein, Adar Zalikovic, Adam Dorsey, Bella Chow, Varun Ramtin Maghrur, Fabian Moreno, and Daniel Smith. Absolute legends. Thank you so much for your support. We love having you part of this family. And Hala Madrid.